Hello, Technicality here with a quick disclaimer about this episode. This episode covers heavier topics and things that might be bothering or triggering to some people. Please check the description for more information. If you're not fit to listen to this episode, that is fine. We hope to see you next year, and happy holidays.
Hello and welcome to the Bury Me Alive podcast.
I'm your host, Technicality.
And I'm also your host, Ghostly. How you doing today?
I'm good. I'm a bit tired, but I'm ready to record.
You do every time we start recording, I'm like, how are you? And you're just like, oh, I'm tired, but we're doing this. It's my favorite thing.
I mean, we record going into the... Wait, no, I can't say that.
What do we record? Going into what?
We don't exist on weekends. This is not confirmation that we exist on weekends.
We don't exist on weekends. We only exist on Wednesdays when we upload these episodes. What are you talking about?
We do not exist. There is no confirmation of that.
No, you're hallucinating. We're an auditory hallucination. What are you talking about? All right. Would you like to introduce the topic?
Today we'll be talking about Krampus.
I want to quickly give a quick disclaimer about this episode. Krampus is linked to religious themes, particularly of Christianity, and I just want to acknowledge that before we get started, of the origins of him, because something that we want to be mindful about is everyone feeling safe here, and so I want to acknowledge we apologize if we do anything wrong or that might be offensive. Just bear in mind, he does have religious origins. How much do you know about the story of Krampus?
Pretty much nothing outside of Don't Starve.
What is that? You keep mentioning.
Which is a video game, which probably isn't very accurate to the actual story.
So, let's get right into it. Krampus is a creature in Central and Eastern Alpine folklore in Europe. He appears during what's called the Advent season, which is the winter season, particularly the holiday season. Happy holidays for everyone. This episode will be out actually, I believe a day or two after Christmas. So if you celebrate Christmas, Merry Christmas. Hanukkah and Yule will have passed, but if you celebrate those, Happy Yule, Happy Hanukkah. And I believe Kwanzaa will have started the day before this episode comes out. So also Happy Kwanzaa. We have all the holidays.
We are drowning in the holiday spirit.
Don't make it sound like a horror movie. But yeah, so Krampus appears during that season, and his job is to scare the children who have misbehaved. In some stories and depictions of Krampus, he is sent by the devil, or Satan himself, to assist Saint Nicholas, or Santa Claus, who has been sent by heaven, and they work together to congratulate people doing good, particularly children. So heaven congratulates that, while hell and the demons condone and punish the kids who have done bad.
That's an interesting one.
We warned you about religious themes for a reason.
Yeah. Huh.
Yeah. In the original origin of Krampus, he is actually goes back to pre-Christianity in Alpine traditions. There have been celebrations involving Krampus dating back to the 16th or 17th centuries in AD. There haven't been any written sources of this. This is just things that historians have studied based off of other things going on at the time. He was a very important cultural element, and he even had a festival, which I believe he still actually does. I might not be pronouncing this correctly. Krampusnacht?
Oh, it's Krampusnacht. Or something along those lines. I'm not fully sure.
Thank you. Thank you, German. Yeah, well, you at least speak some German.
Just a little bit. I'm bisschen.
I've heard you scream in German at people.
Yeah, I know enough to scream at people in German.
Yeah. So, fun fact, both of us obviously speak English, and technicality also speaks German. And don't you speak a bit of Spanish too?
At this point, I speak as much Spanish as I do German. I did not actually.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I went to a German school when I was
Yeah, I know you
younger,
were raised with German.
but I didn't really learn a huge amount due to, at the time, not being as interested in learning a language. I just have, like, a good base for German learning.
Also, because you have German family and your family speaks German.
Yeah, members of my family do speak German.
Okay, anyway, well, you were able to help me pronounce this name. It is a German holiday, like I mentioned, and actually, ironically enough, Cal and I were talking off recording, but we don't exist off recording, so it's 50
That
50.
conversation didn't actually happen. We're gaslighting you.
Exactly.
Um,
But it is, you mentioned celebrating something similar to this on December 6th, called the Feast of St. Nicholas. And the preceding night is also celebrated as Krampus night, or pronounce the word.
Krampus Nacht, I believe. You'd have to send me the
Yeah,
spelling.
that.
Doing it by
Krampusnacht? Krampusnacht?
Nacht.
That. On December 6th, St. Nick comes around delivering the goods, things, mainly food at this time. And then on the night of December 5th, Krampus comes around for Krampusnacht?
Nacht.
Nacht. Krampusnacht.
Not quite, but good enough.
I'm doing my best. I don't speak German. But anyway, Krampus appears on the streets, sometimes with Saint Nick, and sometimes by his own. He visits homes and businesses to punish them.
Dun dun dun.
He gives them things like coal, which you can see in modern day, and I'm going to get a bit more into this. He also beats some children with sticks. Yeah.
Fun.
In Alpine regions, there is a play called Nicolas Peel. It's called Nicholas's Play in English. And it's focused on Adam and Eve. This is from the Roman Catholic Church, for context. And Nicholas is in the play, and you can also see Krampus as Nicholas is delivering good fortunes and joy while Krampus is beating children.
That's kind of intense.
Yeah, he's a bit intense. Speaking of being intense, his physical description is he has multiple variations, oftentimes with folklore and other religious figures. He is very hairy, is something very heavily described. He has a lot of hair that's typically dark brown or black. He has hooves and the horns of a goat, which are very long and sharp. He has a long tongue that's split and pointed that sticks out of his mouth, and he has fangs. He typically carries chains as well to symbolize the devil being bad, and he will throw around the chains for dramatic effect. And he also carries around what are birch branches, or also known as birch rods, which are known to be a form of punishment, and he uses them to hit children. Typically it's to hit criminals, but he instead likes to take them and beat children to a pulp. Sometimes he's extra spicy and likes to use a whip instead. I just sent over a Krampus card.
That is an image. In terms of Krampus,
Yeah.
so he's he's tied into religion, but are there, like, with our other cryptids, sightings of him in other places?
He's not so much as a cryptid and more of a folklore character, I would say. There have been people being like, I saw, like, mainly religious leaders threatening children with, when I was young and I did something bad, I saw Krampus walking the streets with his chains and whips. But not just like, oh, hey, that's Krampus in the forest over there.
This is a bit different from what we usually do.
Yeah, he's a bit different. This is a great example of some of the episodes you'll be seeing in the future, depriving away from cryptids, but still being somewhat spooky.
Mm-hmm.
He often also is depicted with a cart in which he will put the evil children inside to transport them to hell. He'll just throw them in a bag and toss them down there, I guess.
Bye-bye.
Yeah. He's fun. The name of Krampus is thought to come from a few different places. This is the etymology of the word. In Bavarian, Krampen, I severely apologize for the pronunciation of these words, means dead or rotten. From German, Kramp/Krampen, I'm trying my best to pronounce that, meaning claw, and he's depicted with claws. And he is also considered to be half goat, half demon monster in legends, and that links into the names of dead and rotten and claw, just being evil.
That is interesting.
Yeah. I'm trying to not let this be too heavy, but it's really just dark.
You actually see that usually having, like, a big bad figure in a lot of different folklore and tales.
A lot of criticism is around Krampus because there are things called Krampus runs where people will dress up as him as a festival and go running around the streets to scare children. And occasionally spectators will attack them and like whip them and stuff.
Oh.
In 2013, so after some Krampus runs, a total of 8 people were injured with broken bones, and they admitted to a local hospital, and over 60 other patients were treated due to the Krampus runs.
Why would people do that? Like, were they signing up for getting that done, or?
No, it was meant to be something fun, and people, and I guess it upset people, and they reacted. Yeah, it was their way of taking revenge on Krampus. In Japan, there is a holiday with ogres or ogis, and the people will dress up in the masks, and people throw beans at them. It sounds weird, but there's actually a lot of history behind it. I'm not going to get too deep into the history because I want to keep this short. But in that case, the people wearing the masks are being, like, they sign up to get things thrown at them. These people did not sign up for that.
So it's different.
They signed up to wear
Yeah.
a costume and scare children.
Shows how intense people can get sometimes.
People can get very, very intense. Depending on the area, Krampus is mainly localized to Europe, but depending on the area in Europe, his stories vary. He appears in the folklore of Austria, Bavaria, Bosnia, Croatia, Hungary, Romania, Italy, German, and Slovakia. And in each place, he has slightly different depictions. All of them are similar, but some of them have antlers instead of horns, or he uses different forms of torture, or he's not as cruel. Instead, just gives them coal. But in all of them, he is a symbol of the devil and negativity. He ended up in North America in a kind of odd way. We're not really sure how he got over here. A lot of people in North America, including me and you, are European, but his folklore being carried over is something that is quite unsure.
So we're not sure the exact time period it got to the Americas?
Nope. And he's only made an impact of being celebrated in North America. We have not seen or heard anything of him being in South America. I'm sure that there's obviously someone in South America who celebrates. Pronounce the word, please.
Krampusnacht.
But I don't have any notes on that.
So you said there was different depictions of Krampus. Are there any depictions that vary wildly from the others?
The biggest difference of description I found is instead of him being goat-like, he's deer-like with antlers instead. And I'm not quite sure where he got antlers from. In the 1950s, I believe it was somewhere in Europe. It was somewhere in Europe. I didn't write down where in Europe, of course. But in the 1950s, pamphlets were distributed titled "Krampus is an Evil Man," and the goal was to have people fear encounters with Krampus that could. I honestly don't know what they were trying to do here, but when people were scared that the encounters with Krampus would damage children's mental health. Shocking, people realized children have mental health.
Who would have guessed?
They're too young to have mental health.
They're too young.
Which is not true. Please take care of yourselves.
Mm-hmm.
Towards the end of this century, Krampus celebrations occurred in a more positive manner rather than just being to strike fear into children. Because of the pamphlet, Krampus is an evil man.
How is it so they changed it to be more positive so it didn't negatively impact children as much?
No, he's still negative, but they changed how they talked about it and celebrated it, if you will, to make it a little more palatable. Krampus has become quite a symbol in pop culture or popular culture, mainly in North America, ironically. You mentioned that he was in a game. What game was that?
Don't Starve. It's a survival game.
Yeah, so he's in Don't Starve. He has movies. He has I believe it's a special called A Krampus Carol. And he has an animation called A Very Venture Christmas. He has quite a few different kind of themed episodes. In 2015, Krampus was released, which is a comedy horror movie that is quite popular for a lot of people. And the plot of it is that instead of having just Santa Claus or Saint Nick coming around, it kind of goes back to the original stories of Krampus, and Krampus has his own little list, and you don't want to end up on his list. Except there's I believe it was a family ends up on his list, and you can imagine how that goes.
That would be interesting.
Yeah, he gives gifts, I believe, that are kind of like the ones from Nightmare Before Christmas that eat them and stuff.
So Krampus definitely has had an effect on multiple cultures and just especially pop culture, as do most of these figures and cryptids we've talked about. Their stories get spread into new ways.
What I find interesting is I'm pagan. I'm specifically Wiccan. And a lot of the research I did was linking Krampus back to different spirits and figures that we have. I was thinking about different figures and creatures in my culture. And I honestly couldn't think of anyone similar to Krampus except God himself or the Lord, who also has horns. But he's a very positive figure for me and most pagans.
I think it ties into the popular vilifying of other religious beliefs that I'm not saying current Christianity and current Christians do, but did definitely happen in the past.
I know a lot of people who are Christian, like my grandmother, and we have a friend who is as well. And I find it interesting because when oftentimes I grew up, when someone was talking about Christianity, I would just think of my grandmother. But it's interesting for me to see how different people think of the religion as something toxic. Because obviously in any religion, there are toxic people.
Yeah. And any,
There's toxic Christians. Yeah, in any community, there's someone who's toxic.
mm,
And there are toxic Christians that have ended up heavily defining them. And I've noticed a lot as being a queer person, both of us are queer. Something I don't know if you've noticed, people taking a distaste to Christians in the queer community because there are people who are toxic and are Christian and they are anti-LGBTQIA+. And with that, it has become the stereotype.
I think it's really because the most negative voices, the most extremist voices will always come out the loudest, will always be focused on the most. So it focuses away from all the good people. So the few that are not good people or take things to the extreme usually are the ones who create the stereotypes for the rest of the community, which is a really negative side effect of,
It's harmful for
yeah.
everyone. I also know a lot of queer people who are Christian, and they've been called homophobic when they themselves are gay.
It's,
That one's interesting to me. And they're no longer my neighbor, but I used to have a neighbor who was Christian. She was a minister, like she was high ranked in the church, and her kid is bi and trans, and like they had a pride flag in their house, but and like next they had it next to their cross and stuff. I remember some their kid was telling me that someone in their church got really mad, saying that it was wrong, and she was directing the service, and she was like, "That's my kid. Like, what is wrong with you? They've been a part of this church their whole life." It bothers me because it also goes against what Jesus was even saying. He was saying, love one another. You've probably heard love thy neighbor as thyself, but it's something I've heard a lot. And it's a very common and heavily said thing in the community. And so when people are homophobic, transphobic, racist, ableist, whatever, and are Christian, and they like preach love thy neighbor, but they don't love thy neighbor.
yeah, you have the problem of people have a tendency to be so radical in their beliefs or so firm in what they have been taught that they can't see when they contradict what they are fighting for. So it's a major problem, and it's probably not going to stop. What we can do is really try to negate it as much as possible and not judge someone by the stereotypes put on their community.
I mean, if people were to put stereotypes from our community, I'm asexual, you're asexual. If people were to be just using asexual stereotypes to stereotype us, I guess we would be robotic plants. Spoiler alert, everyone, we're not robots or plants. We're people. It would be interesting, but you get what I'm trying to say. But with those stereotypes,
Sorry.
Again, it's not true. We're not unfeeling monsters. We still have the ability to love people. And so we have to balance. This is a reminder, please, everybody, look at every side of the situation before you make an opinion. Do your own research. Find out your own things. And educate yourself.
Don't believe what random people tell you on the internet.
And if you're going to, check multiple random people on the internet. If enough random people on the internet are saying something,
maybe it's true, maybe it's not.
But we try very hard to keep things in fact. So, but always check us.
You just got kind of political.
We're always political, hon.
Yes.
Back to Krampus. There is one last thing I wanted to comment on about him. And that is how the role of Krampus and the role of Saint Nick have been combined over the years. Because what do you think when we're thinking about the holiday season and Santa Claus coming around? What do you think Santa Claus does, Cal? Like, what do you think when you think of it?
He brings you presents if you're nice and brings you coal if you're not.
Mm-hmm.
Which very much ties into the whole things you've been saying about Krampus earlier.
Yep, because Krampus used to bring kids coal as well. And over time, Krampus and Saint Nick have kind of become one person, depending on the story, of course. But in the, I guess, socialized version of Christmas, like the mainstream holiday version, he's one person. Which I find very interesting. Because that image of the devil has been heavily dispelled for many people. And now it's just one guy with a fabulous beard.
It might be because in popularized media, they don't want, I guess it's harder to make a marketable plush of a Krampus than a Santa Claus. And you're less likely to buy it for your kid.
Yeah, I'm just gonna quickly tuck away my cryptid plushies. I definitely wouldn't buy that if anyone is wondering. But yeah, in like what I was talking about, Krampus has gone in and out of popularity, if you will. But even now, with Krampus making a return, he's still a very different version, and he's done it in a different way that doesn't scar kids as much as it used to.
Fair enough.
We're keeping the kids a little more safe than we used to.
Just a little bit.
Just a little bit. Every kid needs to be a little bit scared, I think. But
we're in your house.
What'd you just say?
Nothing. You heard nothing. I said nothing.
You do realize I'm editing this episode and I'll hear it post.
No, it'll be redacted. You don't know how this works.
Who do you think edits all your audio? Krampus?
Mothman edits my audio.
Anyway.
Be nice, be kind, and disappear into the ether.
We thank you very much for listening to this episode of Bury Me Alive, and we hope that everyone is having a good holiday season, no matter what holiday you're celebrating. We thank you for listening to our holiday special. Like Cal just said, please be nice to each other. Maybe don't disappear into the ether, but be nice to each other. We hope that you're safe, we hope that you're healthy, and we hope that you are getting a well-deserved break.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.